Okay, Tony.
Okay, it's Thursday night, November 19th. Would you all rise for the pledge? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it
which
stands,
stands
one
one
nation,
God,
under God, indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and
and justice for all.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Alvarez,
Here.
Councilman Larka,
Here.
Councilman Lord,
Here.
Councilman O'Connor,
Here.
Supervisor Hay.
Here. Okay, first item on the agenda this evening is a public hearing. I waive the reading of the public hearing. It's to amend Chapter 3 of the Town Code entitled Architectural Review Board to co-designate the Planning Board and the Architectural Review Board. I would like to open the meeting. And is there a second?
I'll second.
Eric, can you identify to the people how they raise their hand to speak here at this public hearing this evening?
Yes, you can, on the participant, if you click on participant list, you should be able to go by your name and raise your hand. You can also press, I believe it's Ashley checking on the *9 to raise your hand on the phone. Or you can type in the chat if you want to be unmuted.
You
Okay,
see,
we have
anybody?
somebody raised their hand here. 1 second.
Okay.
Okay, Carla, you should be unmuted.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. Thanks, Eric. Hi, everybody. I have a couple of questions, and I just want to make a few comments on merging the ARB into the planning board. I don't have an objection to it. I think actually it might streamline the approval process for applicants. It would be one less stop for them and maybe save them some time. So I think that would be positive. Just a couple of questions or comments. What would happen to the current ARB members? Would they no longer have a responsibility?
Ashley? I would say no, but Ashley?
That's correct. So the current planning board members would automatically become the ARB members as well. They would be co-designated as the planning board and the ARB. If a vacancy opens up on the planning board, then the current ARB members could apply to take that vacancy.
Okay, thanks, Ashley and Tony. And then one thing that I would recommend is that I noticed as an ARB member that sometimes decisions were made by the ARB and or the planning board and or the zoning board. And then I'm sure because the building inspector is so busy, he doesn't have a chance to follow up, because we found occasionally that previous decisions were never implemented. So a landlord, for example, for a small strip mall might come in and want something changed, and then come to find out they never made the original changes that they were supposed to make in the first place. So my only recommendation is that when decisions are made after some reasonable time, if it's possible and time permits, the building inspector should go and make sure the decisions were actually implemented. And if not, they should tell whomever the business owner is, or the client or the customer or the applicant, that they're overdue in making the change. That just one recommendation to be considered.
Quick question, Ashley, isn't that the responsibility of the town engineer maybe?
So when somebody applies for a building permit to construct something, before they receive their certificate of occupancy, the town engineer and the building inspector do go through the approval resolutions to make sure that things were completed as they were supposed to be. And if they weren't, then that oftentimes would trigger a amended site plan approval if needed, or sometimes it gets handled as a field change. But those, I mean, if there's a building permit involved, there are checks in place to correct those things.
That's part, okay, sorry.
Tony, my only comment is it complicates an approval process if an original decision was never implemented. So it's just a good idea to make sure that people do whatever, they come in and ask for permission to do things. Well, if we give them permission, they should do it. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, I think sometimes, though, Carlos, it was overlooked somehow because there's two people actually looking, the building inspector and the town engineer. That's part of the fees that they pay to the town for us to go and inspect.
Yeah, maybe so. I apologize if I have the wrong person, and I'm not trying to say somebody forgot to do something. I'm just saying it's a good idea to make sure people do what they say they're gonna do.
I think they usually do that. Maybe tomorrow you can tell us which one you're speaking of in particular. We'll see if we can see where, when it's stray.
Oh, I'd be happy to tell you right now, and Ashley may remember too. It's a small mall on Route 6. We were looking at the DC hair salon. It was a new place that was going in, and come to find out, there's a big sign there as you go by. It's on Route 6 before you get to that PNC Bank.
Yeah, so I know the shopping center you're speaking of, and I think the issue with that one is they started the process. I think they made it through the ARB, but I'm not sure they ever finished site plan approval. So, you know, when things are in limbo like that, then until they finish site plan approval, there's no trigger for the building permit to be, you know, to be issued. So that's what I think that's what the issue with that one is.
And that's at the bottom of Brewster Heights, Carla. That's how we refer to.
Oh, okay. Well, again, my point is, if they go to the trouble of applying for permission to do something and they're given it, they should do it. That's all, because, you know, we agreed. It's usually an improvement that we're approving. So, you know, it'd be nice if it happened in an expeditious manner.
Right. So actually, one of the ways, so one of the issues there is that the ARB currently approves something, and then it either has to go to the town board for a recommendation or the planning board for a recommendation, and it comes back to the planning board for final site plan approval. I believe that the application you're speaking about never finished the process. It never came back to the planning board for final site plan approval. Under the proposed law, where the ARB and the planning board would be co-designated, the town would no longer have that gap between when the ARB approves something and the planning board approves something.
Right. Another plus for applicants. Right. Agreed.
Any other questions, Carla?
No, Tony, thanks for a few minutes of everybody's time.
Not a problem. Anyone else wish to speak to this issue?
Again, you can go to participants and go next to your name and raise your hand. You can press *9, I believe it is, if you've dialed in through a phone, or you could ask in the chat that we unmute you. Okay, it appears
Okay.
no one else has raised their hands. Yeah,
They have?
no one has.
Okay. Okay. As been customary with Zoom meetings, in this case, I'm going to ask that we extend the public hearing in writing by 5 additional days from today. And is there a second to extend the public comment 5 days in writing?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next will be the work session. Make a motion to go into the work session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the first item on the agenda is discussion special permit for campus at Fields Corner. We have in front of us, and it was on the internet, so everyone had an opportunity to review it. There's 12 pages of special permit requirements. Even at the last moment today, we got a letter from the attorney from Hunter's Glen that they've agreed upon an amount we have in the special permit this evening showing $30,000. That has been raised to $40,000. And I want to thank the applicant and the residents for working to try to make this the best document it possibly can. And I guess we'll be open for questions. Now, I did contact Ashley, the town planner. We contacted the applicant and some changes were made, but they're incorporated in what you see here this evening. So most of you didn't have that same opportunity. You may need a new opportunity. So if you have any questions at this point in time, this is not a public hearing, just so the public knows. This is the town board discussion on the special permit. At the end of the meeting is a portion of the public comment where you can make comment. But this is now between the town board, the applicant, and the town planner for the special permit. Town board.
Tony, I have a few questions. Ashley, on number 10 on the special permit,
What
There's,
page?
um,
Can you add that?
page 6.
Okay. Yes, John, you go ahead and number them? Okay, 10 what?
So there's some conditions in there, A, B, C, D, and they talk about the tenant or owner being partially responsible, or at least I read it in the secret one. Yeah, so the applicant's tenant or occupancies are insured to ensure the accuracy. So what I was wondering here, my question is, there's New York State Department of Transportation restrictions on trucks going past the on-ramp on 312 towards 22. But the way I understand that, the only way to enforce that is, if a traffic cop happens to be sitting there and pull over that trucker and give them a ticket, could we include that the owner occupant is also responsible for that, similar to how they are responsible for no idling and some other state restrictions that are in place?
I think we can only do that for the large trucks. I think if there was
Yeah.
a box truck,
Right, that I meant the 53 footers, which there is a state restriction for.
yes, I
And
believe we
and the
can
reason
add.
I ask is just, like I said, if undoubtedly they will go that way and there will not be a cop there. So if we do get reports of that, at least we can go back to the applicant or the tenant and put some pressure on them for that.
Okay.
I also, for Barrett Road, and reading through a lot of this, it appears that it's an abandoned road that hasn't been used. But it's asking us to forfeit our right of way there. Is that town land? Is that like an asset, or is it just a right of way over that land?
Well,
My question is,
It's an interesting question. I don't know that I could say it's not a town asset. It is a mapped road that has not been maintained for many, many years. And I think by a number of interpretations, the owners of when a highway is abandoned, the owners of the adjacent property have a right to that particular area to the center line thereof. I certainly, I think if Dan Richmond wants to chime in on this, I think he might have a little bit more of a specific chapter and verse, but that's essentially the rule.
yeah, I read, I don't know if that's necessary. My question really was, and I read through what Dan's put in here and Ashley, and it seems pretty clear to me, but if it is town land that we were going to convey to them, or I think personally I'd want to get something in return for it, is why I'm asking. But if it's just a right of way and we don't necessarily own the land, then that's a different story.
Eric, can I ask you to unmute Dan Richmond, I think Kevin, I can't pronounce your last name, and Rich Pearson. Is Kate Roberts with you, Dan? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, unmute her as well.
All
So
right.
he can ask his team to respond, but Dan, to you, he's muted.
Ashley, help me with this. I'm
Yeah.
muting as many as I can see.
Okay,
Peter
Oh, is
Gilpatrick
it-
is also with us tonight.
Is it, Dan, are you under Lana Richmond?
yep,
Yes.
Okay,
and Kevin, MASCIO,
yep.
sorry about the last part, and Kate Roberts.
And Peter Gilpatrick also is with us tonight.
Who?
Peter Gilpatrick.
Oh, yep, there he is.
I
You
think
see
I
him?
got everybody.
Nope, Peter's not on yet.
Well, he needs to unmute on his end. 'Cause-
Yeah, we've asked you to,
Okay, he's good. John, you can unmute when you want, John O'Connor. Okay, now,
very
Dan,
much.
if you need help or you need one of your team to respond to our questions, you can identify who's going to respond.
Thank you very much, Mr. Supervisor. If I could just address the point that's being raised now.
Yes,
First of all, Eric, yes, I'm using my wife's computer. That's why it shows up as Alana. But this was addressed in the FEIS adopted by the planning board that the Barrett Road is a right of way. It's exists only, it's essentially an easement of sorts. And upon its abandonment by operation of law, as Will said, it would revert to the owner on each side to the center line, which being Putnam Seabury, they would acquire so much of Barrett Road as was on their property.
Okay. I think that answers my question. I wasn't, looking for $1 million there, but if it was an asset for the town or land that town owned, I think I'd want something in return, even if it was like something within the town, but I'll think about that. And then the last question I had isn't on the special permit, but I just want to bring it up about the pilot. It says it's 15 years and I've typically only see 10 years. So I don't know. I know that's not on the agenda tonight, but I just wanted to throw that out there that I'm not sure why it's 15 years. And those are my questions for today.
And can you respond to that?
About I think, look, a pilot, I think as we've made clear throughout, will only become real once there's a tenant and then we have the ability to apply for it. So I think that's something that we would discuss with the Putnam County IDA, assuming we were induced. My understanding is it's typically 15 years.
Yeah. It's been 10. Almost all the ones we've done have been 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe down in Westchester they do longer, but up here it's been 10. Okay.
Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Another town board member.
Jump in only because aside from my own questions, now I got a question about one of Eric's questions. Eric, what you're asking is basically for the applicant or any of the anybody who leases or rents from them, and I'm making this up. I don't want anybody to think I know have insider information. So if Costco's or Old Navy decides to use this distribution network, you're asking them to police if a truck is making the wrong left or right hand turn and going where they're not supposed to go? Because to me that's all about enforcement, and unless somebody from like Old Navy is sitting there,
I guess I guess
that's enforceable.
what I'm asking is, like in here, it says, trucks shouldn't be idling on site. That's an enforcement issue too. But if we find it, we can threaten their special permit until
Sure,
they're.
but they're on site, and now I'm making it up, and the dock worker can say, "Oh, hey, that truck has been on for half an hour." But making like that right-hand turn off the highway a mile down the road, or technically a mile and a quarter down the road, I just don't see it. So I need a little clarification if that's what you were asking. And again, I don't see how we could put that into like a special permit, but I could be wrong. Maybe Willis or Ashley, is it me? I don't know. Maybe I just don't understand.
I mean, first I'll clarify, and then maybe they can talk to it. But yeah, I mean, enforcement's always an issue. To be able, those roads aren't built for those trucks. And I'm not saying this will happen, but if this application goes through and produces a significant amount of traffic going by the school, going down where those trucks are not permitted per the New York State Department, I don't want to have the only recourse be to reach out to the sheriff's department and say, hey, patrol this thing and wait for a truck to drive by at some point. And what I'd rather, or in addition to that, it would be nice to be able to go to the owner occupant and say, hey, we've been having an issue with trucks going down that way. You need to take care of it, or it's a condition of your permit. So I don't know if that's possible, but just to clarify, that's what I was thinking.
One thing is a bigger issue, Eric. We cannot prove, I don't believe, that the truck came from campus. I mean, trucks are on Route 312. I mean, there's trucks on 312. There's tons of trucks out here on Route 22. And you can't determine, I guess maybe they can go back to the whoever occupies the building, say the XYZ company just come to your spot, whatever. but there's gonna be numerous trucks that will be doing it and they have nothing, because right now it's happening on 312, even though they're not supposed to be there. And I've never seen a truck pulled over for being over a certain size on 312.
Me
Peter, I
neither.
agree.
I've never seen it either, and that's why it's a concern of mine.
But you
I
can't
don't-
hold them responsible.
Yeah,
I
and
don't
that's
see,
where I'm going with this. I just don't see how we could put that into the special permit, but that would be my opinion.
yeah, and I just don't see the harm in it. If it's not provable, then so what? If to your point, if a Gap or Old Navy goes in there and you see a bunch of Old Navy trucks going down that way, then it is. Then it could be an issue, but 9 times out of 10, it's not going to be an issue or enforceable through this anyway. So I don't see the harm in putting it in. Just my opinion.
If a truck has a violation and is cited by law enforcement, they could always access the trucker's logs to find out where he came from.
Yeah, that's fine.
At that
And-
point, could go back to the occupant or whoever he delivered to and put them on notice that this guy did not follow the instructions that he should have to service that company.
Right, to me, that's an enforcement issue. Once again, that shouldn't be placed on the owner occupant, but again, just my opinion. So I apologize. I'll move on unless, somebody else wants to clarify or whatnot. One of my questions was about the conservation easements that we're making. And I just wasn't 100% sure. It sounded like in the language that we're leaving enough wiggle room. So, and again, I'm making this up. If the applicant needed to dig up a field for their septic fields or something like that, that they could do it. And, or again, I'm making it up. If they needed to put like a simple shed or something on there, I'm just afraid that, making a conservation easement where there's no build, I get it. No build to me means another big building, another 100,000 square foot building. But I don't want to tie their hands if they need to do something simple. Again, I'm making it up, like put a shed there or something like that. That is not really going to interfere with anybody. So the language sounded like it was appropriate, but I just wanted to confirm, am I reading that correctly or not? Ashley?
You're reading that correctly. So it's written so that if they need it for some utilitarian purpose that wouldn't increase the intensity of the use on the site, it wouldn't generate new traffic. It would just be to accommodate the existing users of the building if for some reason they needed a new septic field or additional stormwater management. The shed could be like if they needed a new well, you could have a small pump house. So something of that nature that wouldn't change the overall use of the property.
Okay, thank you. And lastly, hours of operation are always in contention. I mean, we talk about noise, we talk about traffic, we talk about the hours of operation. I know I'm in the minority and people will probably be upset that I'm saying this. I can't believe it's not a 24/7 operation. The fact that it's going to be 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. I think is a great compromise. But I know there's been a lot of back and forth. So I believe this has been vetted. This has been talked about for 3 years, at least on the planning board level and at the town board level. So, and that's what was put into the special permit, but I wasn't sure if somehow anything was going to change yet again or not, or these are the hours because that was based on the FEIS and whatnot.
So the FEIS, the hours of operation that are noted in the draft special permit are what were in the FEIS with the exception of federal holidays being added. So the federal holidays would have the same hours of operation as Sundays.
Oh, okay. Again, to me, that sounds reasonable. And then I guess last question, we just addressed, again, Tony just addressed it. I saw the letter from Hunter's Glen, the attorneys. I remember in reading, I think, Ashley, what you proposed, it said 30,000. So
We're
I
gonna
don't
change
think
it.
it was a typo. It was 30,000 initially, and now it's being bumped up to 40. And is it 30,000 for each Hunter's Glen and Twin Brooks, or is it combined?
40 total.
40 total.
2020 and everybody's in?
No, not 20. I don't know if they decide the distribution will be up to Hunter's Glen and Twin Brook. Is that not correct?
I think clarify our intent, to be fair to Hunter's Glen, our intention was that we were making a deal with Hunter's Glen, 40,000, and that then the 30,000 would be 15 for Twin Brooks.
So wait, so now it's gonna be 40 for Hunter's Glen and 15 for Twin Brook?
Yes,
Okay, so we'll change that this evening in this document then. So 40 and 10, you said, right?
40
40
and
and
15.
15.
And 15, okay. We'll add that, we'll change that number tonight, because I only saw the 40, I didn't see the other 15. So we'll correct that this evening.
Has Twin Brooks been advised of this?
Well, it's the same arrangement they're getting, John, under the, right now, as it stands, it's 30,000 split between them.
I thought it was 30 each. No?
No, it was originally, it was 30 and it was going to be 15 to each, but now it's going to be a total of
40 and 15. Okay.
40 and 15, so.
Where is that in the document? Ashley, those
Number
numbers,
16 on page 8.
Yep,
page 8,
Yeah.
number
16.
16. So let's do that right now. Provide up to, we're gonna say 45,000?
so it'd
Dan,
be
Was
Yeah,
that
it-
40,000? We have, again, that's pursuant to the understanding we've reached with Hunter's Glen. And then we would, the amount that Twin Brooks was getting, we'd keep the same 15, which is essentially what it was going to be originally.
I'm still confused. Okay.
So it's
Hunter's-
40, it's still 40, it's 40,000 to Hunter's Glen and then plus 15 to Twin Brooks, so a total of 55,000?
Yes, Ashley.
Okay,
So Ashley, you make that correction?
right, so the correction, so it'll now read up to $55,000, 40,000 to Hunter's Glen and 15,000 to Twin Brooks.
Okay, that's a compromise between the parties, which is good. Okay,
All right, thank you very much then.
John? Okay, John Lord?
Hi. Yeah, I had a bunch of things. Could I just go back to the Barrett Road? If it hasn't been used in 6 years, it's effectively abandoned. I think that's what you had said, Dan, at the last meeting. But the last 6 years, it had always been a part of the campus project. It was going to be a road, and nothing was happening over the last 6 years since campus was not going on. So why would the town have worked that road anyway? So I look at it as an asset. I look at it as a right of way. I know that ATV traffic and motorcycles or dirt bikes should not have been using the road, but I see evidence of it when I'm over there. So I
John,
think it is an asset, and I think it has been used by residents or by people that enjoy that right of way. And it beyond the Putnam Seabury property, the road does appear improved. As I've told you before, I ride over there on my mountain bike, and I only started doing it once we started getting into this application. But that road goes into the Tilly Foster property.
Doesn't go to Tilly Foster. If I could, I don't know if you want me to answer, John.
Well, yeah, sure, please, thank you.
and before you answer, let me just, Dan, before you go on, John, just so you know, and you should have gotten it through your mail, that the highway superintendent of town of Southeast has responded that road's been abandoned for well over 10 years. So that's on record.
And I
So,
think we got something from Putnam County as well. From Mike Penna.
yeah, but the more important one is the one that we received here from our own town highway superintendent that had been abandoned for well over a decade. And that is closed seasonally, basically forever, just so you know. Okay, Dan, go ahead, sorry.
No, I was going to add that, Mr. Supervisor. I mean, I know this road has been gated, closed for, at least 10 years. Again, John, you also asked, it's a right of way. I don't regard it as an asset at this standard, as the town attorney, Will Stevens, has said, is that when a municipality acquires, a right of way over a road, it's essentially an easement. And when the town abandons it, it reverts to the property owner, who essentially was the owner all along. You've mentioned before that, I think you say that, that Barrett Road continues on to John Simpson Road. It doesn't go to Tilly Foster. And I just, again, you did raise that early in the process. We did do the title research, which showed that there's no evidence that that road, neither of the property owners on that, on the other side of Beaver Brook between us and John Simpson Road, show that road in their title reports. But I think going back to the supervisor's point, it's been abandoned. It's just a fact at this point.
Thank you. Okay. On the special permit presentation, the resolved, the proposed use is in such a location and size and character that it will be in harmony with the appropriate orderly development of the surrounding district. I think it's going to be detrimental to the Fields Corner, the people that live on Fields Corner or Fields Lane, Corner Lane in Patterson, because of the increased traffic that will occur. And I know the road is will be closed to truck traffic by the gate, but we don't know what the employees are going to do and what any vehicle will do should there be traffic issues on Route 312, which I think is going to be an issue with this project. Number 4 on, I think it's the first resolved. Yeah,
What page on, John? Page 4?
page 3.
Page 3?
The proposed use will not require any such public facilities or services or create fiscal burdens upon the town greater than those which characterize uses permitted as of right. I think that there's going to be issues and requirements for fire and emergency services. And I don't think that the Brewster Fire Department weighed in at all on this application, but I think it's something that we should consider, or we should know that it could cause additional burdens on our public facilities and services.
Well, I can say one thing, the fact that that road will be widened substantially, be paved, will be an asset to the fire department to go up and down. Because I'm telling you right now, during the wintertime, it's not usable. Let's say they needed a mutual aid for that first house on the right, or coming in from Patterson, that one woman, I can't think of her name now, that lives there. If her house is on fire and they call for mutual aid, it will actually benefit and not hinder it. And Ashley, let me just, Ashley, was the fire department, aren't they usually brought into these comments sometimes? Or no?
They were provided copies of all of the environmental impacts and the statements, and they were invited to participate in the process. There was some communication that was included in the appendices to the FEIS.
Okay.
I would
Go ahead,
also,
John.
may I add something, Mr.
Yeah,
Supervisor?
sure.
Just the FEIS shows that actually the municipal costs of this project are going to be quite low. I think we estimated a total about $117,000, which is pretty minimal compared to the financial benefit coming from the project.
And now, John, just to let you know, one of the benefits, one of the things I had spoken to them about early on is the cost of repairing this road. I know Dan gave us a big number, like $2.something million, but over 15 years, it came out to about $140,000 or $160,000 in the town. And the first repaving, and the road is going to be substantially a higher grade than probably any of the town roads in this town. And it should last 15 to 20 years. But when it has to be done the first time, it's on them. They will be doing it. That was part of the agreement we made. Well, at least we added to it. And thank you for doing that.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Well, it's part of what you're asking for in the special permit, basically. It's not
I know.
anything that's been discussed before.
No, well, I asked that it be put in there. And I mean, anyone could have made a comment, and that was one of the things I thought was important to this town, because again, they're using big numbers over 15 years. However, it's a substantial paving of the road, and our taxpayers are not picking up the dimes, quarters, nickels, and hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Okay, well, that's basically in return for abandoning Barrett Road?
No, not in the least.
Okay, all right. On page 4, land use, number 2, no hazardous substances. As that term is defined by New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, whatever. Who will be handled or stored at the property? Who will monitor and enforce that? I think that might need to be added onto that. And number 3, each tenant or
Oh,
occupant.
wait, let's finish with that. What do you mean by that?
Who will monitor that no hazardous substances are there? Are we going to be asking the occupants or the tenants to certify that in some way? And who would enforce that?
Well, the town would probably enforce it, but Ashley, want to respond to that? If you can.
I mean, any new tenants need a tenant CO, and so the building department would be reviewing that, and they could refuse a tenant CO to any type of business that works with this type of material.
Okay. And the second, number 3, each tenant or occupant of the building shall enforce site-specific requirements, including prohibitions. I guess the individual tenant would be the one that would be monitoring that, but I'd also like the property owner to take some responsibility as well. Maybe include in their tenant agreement that that they need to, or just to give the town a little bit more control over it. I don't know if we'll have much control over tenants. I believe the property owner would be the one that would have the most control.
Isn't
So,
it like
you're asking, so John, you're asking them basically the property owner and each tenant or occupant. Is that the way you want it to read?
Yeah,
I think that's a fair something.
Isn't this, I mean, this is a special permit, so isn't this saying these are the things they're responsible for? If we get complaints of people parking there overnight or something, then the special permit is at risk, right?
Yes, you could issue a violation for violating the conditions of the special permit.
And the special permit would affect, indirectly the owner, but the tenant, because they wouldn't be able to operate, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so I would recommend number 3 start off with property owner as well as each tenant or occupant. Does that solve what you're thinking, John?
yeah, I think so. I think that would be good.
Any problem with that wording?
At the risk of losing the special permit for their,
Okay.
Well,
Mr. Richmond, you have a problem with that wording?
just, I guess semantics, just with what Eric said, I mean, isn't it really the occupant who's at risk? Not really the property owner. Again, we're making it up. If it's Old Navy, they're the ones who are at risk of getting thrown out, not really the property owner, no?
Well, we're asking that the property owner have some responsibility not to put a tenant in that's going to have hazardous materials.
I would think, like, I work in a hospital and I deal with radioisotopes, and on my license and my registration at the hospital with Department of Health and regulatory agencies, I have documentation, so I'm allowed to have that there. If I didn't have that, and then you call like, the Department of Health or some state agency and they found out that there's hazardous materials there, I think they're gonna have bigger problems than just whether or not they're in violation of a special permit. But again, I look to Willis or Ashley, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, but I just think that we're kind of looking at this a little too much. Like I said, at the hospital, if I have radioisotopes that are not on my license and I'm making them up, if I have Cesium-99 and I should only have I-131, I got a lot more, I'm in a lot more trouble if all that than, you know, than if the landlord of the hospital said, oh my God, Ed, you're, you know, you have technetium-99, but
Yeah, but you're personally in trouble of what we need. I mean, and you're the only one answerable. But if this happens, if that happened, I would want your hospital and the landowner to also be responsible for your negligence. And this way, if we have the property owner as well as the tenant on notice, then we have more weight.
Right.
The tenant only answers to the property owner, but the property owner would answer to us since he has a special permit.
at the hospital, I personally wouldn't be liable. The hospital would be liable, but not my landlord, not whoever the hospital rents from. That's just the point I'm making.
Isn't the only recourse the pulling of the permit? There's no other recourse.
Oh, I think
There's the
that
pulling of the
violation-
permit, there's violations, and there's the fact that each tenant needs to get a tenant CO from the building department. So they're gonna have to provide a statement of use, including the types of materials that they would be shipping or storing. And if it's something that falls within this category, they wouldn't be entitled to a tenant CO.
And I would also think the owner has an interest in them complying. I mean, these would essentially be lease requirements too.
Yeah.
These are, restrictions we've, worked out with you, like hazardous substances of the kind that are regulated by DC are a completely different category than the, ordinary users. We put that in there to clarify that, a lot of consumer goods that all of us use contain trace elements of hazardous use. And we want to be clear that that's not what's intended here. But the goal of this, again, if we're talking about, why the owner has an interest in making sure that all these restrictions are in place to, that I think is ultimately, I think someone raised it themselves. The tenant's the one that's, jeopardizing themselves of getting thrown out or being in violation of a lease.
Yeah, I mean, smoke detectors contain a small portion of radioactive material. We're going to get into semantics of, you can't have smoke detectors there.
Fire department won't allow it.
Yeah,
I want language to protect the town. That's what I'm at. I'm not trying to.
I think that's what this discussion's all about.
right.
Good.
And I hope you're not implying I'm not trying to protect the town, John. I mean, that's,
I'm not, but
oh, okay. I just
in the middle of this, that's kind of belittled.
I just don't understand how it's going to be the property owner's problem. That's all.
I mean, we put this in there that put it on the owner, the tenant or occupant, who's the person in place who actually has the ability to enforce it. I mean, I think that's the most effective way of protecting the town. That's what the intention.
You don't think the owner could help as well?
Well, again, if an owner finds out that a tenant's violating the terms of its lease,
He's gonna do something. Okay, I wouldn't have a problem with that. So, okay,
Okay, on traffic. 4A, that's page 4. Prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy for either building, the applicant shall at the intersection of Route 312 and Pugsley install on Route 312 eastbound a left turn lane and a second through lane. Is that, and then it says is proposed. Should that be struck, is proposed?
Yeah, it could just say and a second through lane along 312 eastbound.
Okay, so it is, it's not a proposal, it's a, okay.
Ashley, make that minor adjustment? Okay,
And then B, Route 312 westbound, subject to the selection of the B and C. Are those both subject to the DOT selection? And when will that selection be confirmed?
Yes, so they are subject to DOT selection because it is DOT's road. Both alternatives were analyzed in the EIS. And that determination would be made sometime after site plan approval.
Okay. page 5. Number 8, the applicant should, prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy for either building at the intersection of 312 and I-84 westbound ramps, modify signal timing in the event, repeated, in the event the improvements proposed for Crossroads 312 project have been made. In the event the improvements proposed for Crossroads have not already been made, the applicant is not required to undertake any measures at this intersection. I wonder why that is. I would think that they should modify that signal in both circumstances. I would, even if Crossroads 312 isn't going on, I would assume that some of the truck traffic using Route 84 West coming off of 312 would be coming out of Northeast or the commercial campus. And that will be a burden on that signal. And if that signal is not improved in some way.
So the issue is that if they were to make the improvements to based on Crossroads 312 being in place, the signal timings would be, they wouldn't match the actual traffic patterns in the corridor, because it would be assuming that there was a large retail establishment functioning at that intersection, and there's not, it doesn't exist. So they also did an analysis of the roadway without Crossroads. And so the mitigations measures that are required if Crossroads is not in place are being proposed at all of the intersections where that this project would have an impact on. And then also we've required a traffic monitoring plan. And as part of that, they're taking a look at the signal timings of the full corridor once this project is fully operational. And at that point in time, if there are additional tweaks to the signal timings that need to be made, then they could be made.
Okay, yeah, I think that's covered later on about the traffic plan.
Yeah, I don't know if the applicant's traffic engineer wants to add anything else to that.
That was well said on your part, Ashley. I can answer any other specific questions, but you laid it out correctly.
Michelle, can you tell it was Rich
Richard
Pearson?
Pearson.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you, Tony.
Okay, John.
Okay. Now, number 9, the applicant should prepare within 3 months of full occupancy of both buildings, traffic signal warrant analysis of Route 312 Prospect Hill Road intersection. Why would it have to wait for full occupancy of both buildings instead of full occupancy of, or the occupancy of one building? Why does it have to wait till later? If it occurs, if the two buildings aren't occupied within a year of each other, we could be dealing with traffic issues, waiting for the second one to be fully occupied before an analysis is done.
Well, one, if you do it early, you wouldn't get a full impact, but Anthony, what do you think?
Well, that's true. You would not get the full impact. And as it stands today, they modeled the full build out of the project, and it was not showing that intersection needed a signal. So that's why we would want to wait for the full build out to see if that prediction was correct or incorrect.
But if traffic is demonstrably worse before the second full occupancy, shouldn't something be done sooner rather than later? And if we have it in here that it's not going to occur until the second full occupancy of the entire project is completed.
So you want it done after the first building, not the full build out?
I would want them to take a look at it.
Believe me, if things happening out there, I'm quite sure something's going to get improved pretty quick.
Well, if it's written into a special permit, it will have to. Okay, that's another one of my suggestions. Then 9A or 9B, prior to the first certificate of occupancy for the action, the applicant shall place 150,000 in escrow with the town, or provide a bond to the town in the amount of $150,000 to cover one, the applicant's fair share portion of the traffic light required pursuant to the warrant analysis or other signal technologies identified in corridor study, and two, the costs incurred by the town for their review of the warrant analysis and and corridor study. The applicant shall be responsible for preparing the warrant analysis and corridor study. I would want them to also be responsible for, or my first question is, are the light and the warrant analysis study both part of the $150,000? Is that what that is identified as? And if that's not enough money to put in the light and conduct the warrant analysis, who will be paying that?
So
Well, okay, Ashley.
the escrow money is to cover their fair share portion of the traffic light and the cost of the town to review the warrant analysis and corridor study that's prepared by the applicant. There are other users on this corridor that contribute to that traffic light and to the traffic at that traffic light. And there are other active applications before the town that may contribute to that intersection. The amount of traffic that is projected to use that intersection from this project was not significant enough to say that they needed to be responsible for 100% of it.
Okay. So the $150,000 is there to be used until if a traffic light is needed,
Yep.
and
So-
for the study.
Yeah, so the money is there so that it can be studied. If the study finds that a traffic light is not the best solution for that intersection, then that money can be used towards other improvements on the corridor, like signal upgrades, for new computer technology, so that the lights speak to each other better. So there's other things that money could be used for.
Okay, so everything in that paragraph is included in, or the $150,000 escrow is to go toward those things. And also, I guess, if our consultants needed to confirm the information provided through the applicant's corridor study, those costs would also be coming out of that money.
They would be covered by that money, yes.
Okay. Page 6, at the bottom, H, the operators of the village shall have a policy in place with all the trucking companies that require the use of approved routes to and from the facilities. Trucks shall not use Fields Corner Road, and trucking companies shall face fines or suspensions of businesses with the facility if found not in compliance. I'd like the occupants to also, or the tenants to also discourage the use of Fields Corner Road by their employees. Only, I'm not sure how that could be worded, but and I think that there's going to be traffic devices watching the road, but just so that Patterson isn't impacted by people going on that road. And I know the road's going to be continued as a dirt road and not to dissuade anybody from using it as a through road, but it will be used. I just wondered if something could be put into any tenant agreements stipulating that employees should use the Pugsley Road 312 entrance.
John, no matter what, this is a public road. I mean, telling employees they can't use it, but I'm gonna tell you right now, people from Patterson, Carmel, off of Fair Street, this is gonna become a thoroughfare once it's paved. And it's not because of this project. It's a road that probably should have been done long ago and was just never done. And they're paying for an improvement. I don't believe we can tell people you can't use a road.
Okay.
Tell the trucks, but not people.
Well, just a suggestion that they make that part of a suggestion to their tenants that they dissuade their employees from using that road. Also, the special permit designation, or that the building inspector or code enforcement officer agreed that warehouse was a permitted use under special permit. And Dan, or the applicant, cited the comprehensive plan and plan update, and also the code. But I want the people, the occupants that are using the facilities, that they make sure that the activities going on in the warehouse would be involving assemblage and processing, not just storage. And that would also involve, and I'd also want the tractor trailers that are going to be brought there and stored or held in the parking area on site. I want them also to be, I'd want some kind of language that those materials that are inside the tractor trailers are into the warehouse in some, or at some point, for assemblage and processing, and not just be a trucking depot. I wouldn't want the facilities to be a drop-off point for different trucking companies or different manufacturers or distribution facilities, to just have that be a way station, because that is basically storage outside. And I don't know.
Because it's storage outside, John, because trucks are bringing products there, I would imagine, to be assembled. Now, I was shocked about 2 or 3 years ago when I heard that an application for McDonald's somewhere, I probably shouldn't say McDonald's, maybe Burger King, get them both in there, is, believe it or not, Chipotle, Starbucks, fast food chain restaurants are manufacturers, believe it or not, light manufacturing. You know why? They have a bun, they got the hamburger, they got the mayonnaise, and they put it together. So if a product comes in and they package it into boxes and ship it off to different ones, that's considered light manufacturing by code. And we also have a distribution warehouse, because the word warehouse and light manufacturing, let's see, what's the name of the place? Oh, man. Ace Indigo.
Yeah, isn't,
Ace Indigo is right in the same district, and they
Yeah.
were classified as
A
light
warehouse.
manufacturing.
Warehouse.
isn't putting a label on a box considered, light manufacturing or assembling? I mean, just something as simple as that. I mean,
If you can put a hamburger together, that's light
that's what I
manufacturing.
mean, you duct tape the box together, you're assembling the box, that's light manufacturing.
Well, Ace Indigo at 80 International Boulevard has been designated a long time ago as light manufacturing, so this is no different. Okay, John, continue.
No, that's I think it, but I just think that it would be important that any tractor trailer that's brought there, that the product inside there makes its way into the warehouse and has some kind of processing or assemblage done to the product. I don't want the tractor trailers to just arrive at the facility and then be taken out at another date without having any.
Unless that warehouse is being used by the United States Postal Service or UPS, I don't think that's happening.
Okay, well, I would want, since our code enforcement officer decided that warehousing or it was or warehousing was permitted because there was assemblage and processing, I would want to make sure that any product that arrives at that site is assembled or processed.
Well, I believe if it comes off the truck, again, I can't say, no one knows what's actually gonna go in there, but there's many of these throughout the country, and that's exactly what they do. They come from whomever, I don't wanna say Amazon, whatever, they take it here, put it there, and you can watch them on TV, they assemble things, and that's what they consider light manufacturing by definition. John O'Connor,
Well, I know we heard a lot tonight, okay, and I would add that having been a fire inspector and code enforcement officer for the town, I'm aware that, you know, when you have occupancies and they come into where you have reportable quantities of hazardous materials, it actually changes the type of occupancy. And that's something that gets regulated already by the town. So I'm sure, you know, our building inspector would be aware of anything that would be outside of the norm for that. Also, having been a first responder for over 30 years now, and having been a first responder for Brewster Fire Department, I'd much rather go to a warehouse that's, you know, going to be sprinklered, have fire alarms, and the ability to get out, because it's really just a structure once any employees are out, rather than residential fires in the same area. Those usually, especially at night, you have you know, a life safety issue, so you're actually putting people in harm's way to get people out of harm's way. So you know, when it's more of a distribution center or light manufacturing, it's a little bit of an easier response to deal with, in my professional opinion. So, but and then also as a commercial driver, who maintains a Class A license, so I can drive 53-foot trailers, doubles, triples, tankers, everything. The many drivers on the road today are actually independent truckers. They're not actually working for a particular company. They're just bringing product from here to there and working with their own tractor unit, and pulling somebody else's trailer. So what somebody does off the property is really not that enforceable from a perspective of, that I've ever seen. So, you know, again, having been a driver for many years, you know, to expect someone to be held liable for the actions of an individual, especially independent owner operator, off somebody's campus is kind of a stretch in my opinion. But that's all I have. So.
okay. Dan, I would ask your team if they can stick around to the end of the meeting this evening.
Yes,
Is that
sir.
possible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, now we're gonna go to item number 2, discussion on memorial benches. We brought up last time. I spoke to John. There's really no written rule of thumb. So we're gonna table it for this evening. I'll talk to you offline, each of you, and see if we want to put something forward, or it's a great idea, but it's really, really tough because everybody and their brothers all of a sudden gonna want to do things, and then where do you put them? So I'll talk to each of you offline on that. So I'm gonna basically table that for now. Item number 3, no parking and standing. Will, we haven't 100% finished this, but I'll talk to you during the week. And maybe at the next meeting, we'll have the wording and set a public hearing for that.
Whatever you, I mean, I can speak to it now if you'd like.
If you could, sure, because I'd like to wrap this up.
If you look at your draft, which is work session number 3, you propose to amend the Argonne Road restrictions, and I think it's too limiting, because as I recall, the reason why those restrictions were put into place was that the length of Argonne Road was being used as a park and ride. People were parking there and getting in other people's cars and driving to the city. It may not be a problem anymore, because not that many people are commuting into the city and they're not going by car. But that was the intention of it originally.
Okay.
So the where you indicate that in your draft that it would start at the base of the, excuse me, Veterans Bridge, which is the High Bridge, some know it as, and go to the intersection of Route 6, that
Down
would
by
leave
Brewster Ford.
that by Brewster Ford, exactly. That would leave the area from the bridge all the way to what is now the Bull and Barrel as being a place where you could park on the side of the road. And I don't know that that was the original intention when the prohibition was put into place.
Well,
On
the
the
only
other
thing
side,
is, well, the only thing there, Will, is the building that's there, which I think is now going to be considered formerly the Bull and Barrel. Most of their employees park there, the gas station there, so there's really no place for people to park. So you want to revert back to the way it was?
no, I'm just trying to tell you what it was, what the reason for it when it was originally imposed.
Okay.
And the, speaking on the other side of the road, that is, we've never posted that area. It's privately owned and people park in that because it's owned by the people that own the Bull and Barrel. It's not parking on the town road, it's parking off the town road.
Okay. So, okay, you'll tell me how to reword that with the next one. Putnam Avenue?
Putnam Avenue,
We're talking from Route 6, which is by Drupal Road,
right?
to,
Can we just go back to Argonne Road for a second?
Sure.
sure,
So having enforced in that area a couple of years before, one of the things you encounter at night when there's a lot of patrons going to those establishments there, they're parking either half on the side of the road, still in the right of way, and half, obviously in the roadway. And the other thing is there is no lighting whatsoever from past behind the strip mall with the Italian American Club there to where the paint store is. So it is pitch black under 84 there, and vehicles traveling through, while they'll have their headlights on, you have people walking around there, and it's certainly a safety issue there from what I've seen, and I think that's might have been why there was enforcement being done there. And again, I know the section you're talking about directly across the street from the restaurant, that really wasn't an issue. It's where the road narrows past that, under the bridge for 84 and towards the paint store. So
Very good observation.
2 lanes, and you have, there's just not an ability to. I thought I lost my computer there. Thanks, Eric. So you don't really have an ability to park there. So you either have to get onto the grass. I'm not really sure who owns that. And then the other thing is, I'm not quite sure. I remember seeing something, and Will, I guess we could research this. I think there's a prohibition for parking under bridges in New York. I'm not quite sure if that's the case, but
I believe it is.
Or anybody parking there, it could be an issue there. So I seem to recall coming across that somewhere for enforcement.
Yeah, something coming off the bridge has the capability of hitting a car. Matter of fact, there was a boat that came off that high bridge about 20 years ago.
So, I would say, certainly as we're looking at this map here, on the north side of Argonne Road, where you see all those trees to the, I guess the west, or actually we're looking, it's the west side of Argonne Road as it's on the southbound side. That's the area that is posted currently with no parking signs. Certainly they're directly under the bridge. I actually saw them the other day. And I believe there are no parking signs on the, where Eric's got his arrow right now, underneath the bridge on that side of the road as well. And again, it's quite narrow there, so you only have the 2 lanes of travel in each direction, and really not a lot of space on the shoulder for people to park. So they tend to be still on the street, okay? And then you're basically bringing it down to 1 lane once cars are there. So
Okay.
that's my 2 cents from having dealt with it.
The reason I brought this forward, we have a bigger problem coming about now on Pump House Road. And I figured why we're going to possibly consider Pump House Road an Independent Way. Should be absolutely no parking on Independent Way the entire length. Because one time there was a catastrophe with the Metro North Railroad. I think 3 people were killed in an accident on the other branch. They told everyone to come to the town of Southeast. And they parked literally from the Dunkin' Donuts lot all the way down to the railroad station on both sides of the road. And you talk about danger. So that's why I think that should be posted as no parking the entire length of that. And of course, on Pump House Road, which I'm working on now. So we'll all work with you with that a little more and then maybe have a public hearing. I think we have to change the local law to do that and discuss it at that time. Good.
That's fine. So you're gonna put it out for further discussion on the
Next time
third?
instead of public hearing.
Okay,
I'll try to get you on board with my wording, but it's not going to work. I can tell.
I don't think so. I got John on my side.
No, we don't. And when you get him on my side,
I got John on my side.
big boys have eaten up on the little guy. Okay. Okay, we're going to go to the regular portion of the meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll waive the reading of the correspondence. Approval of the voucher list, $1,051,754.04. So moved.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Waive the reading of the budget transfer. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Public hearing dates, not public, meeting dates, Thursday, December 3rd, 2020, and Thursday, December 17th, 2020. And with the coronavirus kicking the heels again, we will be doing both of those meetings by Zoom, advertised accordingly. Number 5 is a resolution for highway equipment purchase. Now therefore be resolved that the town highway superintendent is authorized to expend an amount not to exceed $35,000 for the purchase of a trailer. And to be further resolved that the Southeast Superintendent of Highways requires any additional, that should be additional, by the way. I did that, so I screwed up. Funds above the amount allotted, he will need further authorization by the town board to make such expenditure, and be further resolved that this resolution shall take effect immediately. So moved for discussion.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are short a man at the Metro North lot is not being used hardly at all. I don't believe we're using more than 15 to 20%. We do have a parking enforcement officer. There's really not a lot to do, but there's going to be more to do very soon because you cannot believe what's going on Pump House Road. That bikeway is not even open, not complete, and it's becoming a nightmare. So Kathy Judina, who works in the recreation department and rides that road every day, as you know, we're making improvements to what used to be known as Castle Park in that area. Some nice improvements, and they're coming along well, and they're going to get better during the next year. So she's on that road a bunch, and she says, she'll be a parking enforcement officer, and it basically be her territory. She lives right there and she's down the road. And the other gentleman we're going to appoint would be John Liston as a parking enforcement officer. He is also one that chases the geese for us during the summertime. And we'll appoint him as a parking enforcement officer. Not additional hours in a sense, but as the Pump House Road gets worse and worse, he'll have to, but he also works on the weekends for the recreation department. And like he chases the geese at night, so he'd be a good person to put on, and both have volunteered. With pay, of course, it's not a paid job, but they don't put a lot of hours into it, but we do need enforcement. So I'm gonna make a motion to move those 6 and 7. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, supervisor's report. It's almost December. Consider we're hanging in there. The shortfall is still coming, of course, with recreation. Beginning of next year, it's going to be a problem as well. I think the way we put our budget together for this next year, we'll account for it the best we can. At the end of this year, we're going to have a shortfall in some revenues as to be anticipated. Parking, of course, is big time. Fortunately, we didn't have to refund a lot of money, but I'm telling you right now, we sent out the notices for next year. I think you usually have around 100 and change. We got like 130 so far. So it is not gonna be a moneymaker for the town. Maybe forever, and we just got a 5-year extension. So it is what it is. Other than that, that's it for our end. We will now go to recognition of the public. And Eric, can you tell people how they can make comment?
Yeah, so you can, again, go by participant, go to your name, raise your hand. You have one already. Or you can press *9 if you've dialed in on a telephone. That'll raise your hand and we can unmute you. Or you can type in the chat that you would like to be unmuted, and we'll unmute you. So Scott Steeman is on. Scott, you should be unmuted. Can you hear us?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, good evening. It's Scott Seaman from the Brewster Board of Ed. Good to see everybody. Just wanted to give a brief update. We did have some numbers at the school, and we had to close the middle school and the high school for the last 3 days. They have just reopened. We're hoping to stay open as long as possible. But we're getting the same threats from everybody else about if Putnam becomes a yellow zone, then we might be forced to make alterations and go to distance learning. But we're just crossing our fingers and hoping everybody stays safe until then. And to let you know, we have some long-range financial plan meetings coming up for the budget. Like yourselves, we have no idea where we're going to be. And we are receiving notices from the state that they're going to be cutting all the schools' fundings by at least 20%. So we don't know where we're going to be. We're actively working on contacting your local representatives in regards to funding for COVID-related issues or federal funding for hopefully bolstering some money back in the schools. So we have been sending out information, and there's information available on the website at the school. And the financial meeting dates are February 2nd, and March 13th. And we'll follow up with more information. And of course, if there's anything we can do for you, please let us know. And we always appreciate all your help. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks, Scott.
Anyone else from the public?
Anybody else? Again, go to participant, raise your hand next to your name, *9, or you can type in the chat you'd like to be unmuted. Nope. looks like we're good.
Eric, mine says chat 4. What does that mean?
Chat what?
On the bottom, I have a chat. And it
Those
says,
were some messages that somebody had written earlier as we
Okay.
were talking.
They're
okay,
unread. You just haven't read them, Tony. That's why.
okay. I've been busy. I'm doing a meeting. Could have had a beer. No, okay. Okay. No one else? Eric?
No one else.
Okay, I'll move to the town board members.
I'll just,
Dan, I guess you and your crew can go. Thank you for participating. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Supervisor, members of the board. If you have any other questions or need any information, just let us know.
Okay,
thank you.
okay.
I just
town
want
board
to wish
members.
everybody a happy Thanksgiving, healthy and happy. Stay safe and healthy as well, everyone.
Yeah.
Ditto from myself. Anyone else? I'll entertain a motion.
We'll make a motion. We close tonight's meeting.
I'm sorry.
John, you gotta, John, you have to learn to be participant. Okay, what do you want to say?
I wanted to ask John O'Connor something based on, during the discussions on the commercial campus at Fields Corners, or just wondered, as a trucker, he said that the people that are trucking now don't have any real, they're usually independent contractors. So does he think that having any or any input from the occupants or tenants to demand that the truckers that they're using follow their instructions, does he think that would be worthwhile?
Well, like you say, usually it can't hurt. Go ahead, John.
I'll go with it. So what I was trying to say was, like for instance, if it's a liveried trucker, like such as Ace Endico, they work for Ace Endico, Okay, so he's wearing an Ace Endico shirt, and obviously his employer has a lot to say what he does on the property, which routes he uses, etc. Whereas a trucker that's just been contracted by XYZ that's dropping off something and may never come back in his entire lifetime to the facility, it's really kind of hard to say, you know, by the way, don't make a right when you go out of there, and the guy can abide by it or he could not, you know. So that's what I was just trying to say. It's to try to put the enforcement. You can ask somebody to do something, and it's human nature that, you know, they can do whatever they're going to do. So
I think if this goes back to the question I was raising, I think what I was trying to say is there's restrictions. So legally, if I understood this correctly, a 55-foot truck cannot pass
53 foot.
53 where the DMV is heading towards 22 legally. That road is not built for that. That's what Dan, you know, Richmond, I think your traffic guy had said in the last meeting. So, right, so that's an enforcement issue. So if a sheriff's sitting at the train tracks and a 55 or 53-foot truck goes by, they get a ticket. And I guess what I'm saying is, let's say UPS moves in there and a bunch of UPS trucks, 53-foot trucks start going that way past the school, down 312 to 22 because there's traffic and they want to get on 684, and that's a shortcut for them. I see what you're saying, John, that if there's independent truckers, like how are you going to nail them, right? But what if it's not? And I guess what I'm saying is, if we put that clause in there, if it's independent truckers and it's not an issue, nothing happens. If it's independent truckers and there is an issue, we may not be able to do anything with that anyway, but at least it's in there and it's probably useless, whatever. If it's UPS, let's say, hypothetically, and there's a bunch of 53-foot UPS trucks going by there, then we can go there and say, one, legally, you're not allowed to drive down that road. And if you keep doing it, it could impact your special permit. So not to say like, we don't want you to go this way because we don't want you to, but it's because you shouldn't. And then at least we have a little bit more recourse, even though it's probably not worth the paper it's written on, admittedly.
Here, let me ask you a question. I know 53 footers because when you're right behind the truck, usually on the side or in the back of it, it's 53, or what is the average truck after 53?
A non-extended trailer, if that's what you're asking. So
well, the average
trailer itself, when we talk 53-foot trailers, it's the trailer, not the tractor, but the trailer.
No, I get that. The caboose.
Standard,
okay. So what is the other size?
The standard ones are 48 feet, and the other standard size is 28 feet.
Oh, 28, you can tell in a second. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, when I sit down at the, by Kelly's Corner there, that intersection, go down on 22, trucks are always jumping that curve there when they should have they did widen it years ago. There's a lot of truck traffic on Route 312 that are not obeying that 53-footer. It has nothing to do with the properties it's going in, and they're heading toward Carmel. And I'm telling you, they do it all the time. And I've never seen anyone get picked off for it.
Just as another fun one, okay, a standard trailer is 13 feet 6 inches high. Okay, if you go to 311 or Route 164, okay, the lowest point is I believe it's 11.4, and I've encountered trucks on there, and I said to the guy, "What are you doing?" And he was out of the truck looking at, seeing if he could squeeze under. And I said, "Your truck is 13.6. It says 11.4. Where are you going to get the other 2 feet from?
Flatten the tires."
Your tires. I mean, this does happen because people don't pay attention. He said, "I didn't see any signs." I said, "There's a sign at 22 before you get on 164 that says low bridge ahead, 11.4. Okay, so and coming the other way from 311, we had recently there was a truck. They made it under the first single lane tunnel, and then he couldn't get under the second one because it's even shorter. Okay, so people do things that they shouldn't be doing, and that's what I'm saying. Like, human nature is going to dictate that some people are just going to ignore the signs, ignore everything, and that's
well, just like down in Westchester County for I have to admit, I have not heard of one, and I'm gonna knock on wood when I say it, but Westchester County, Sawmill River Parkway, almost once a month, they used to get trucks going on to the sawmill, which are not supposed to go, and everybody and their brother knows they're not supposed to go. But I have
The
to admit,
Hutchinson River, like right at the Connecticut border on the Hutch, constantly.
I have not heard of one this year, so I'm knocking on wood, because I think it's been a good year for not going on the wrong way. Okay, anyone else? Thanksgiving to all. I'll be working for a little while if you want to come visit me. Bring a turkey sandwich. Okay, I'll entertain that motion.
Second.
No, I'm not making it. I want to stay.
I
Make the motion.
make a motion, we close the meeting.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you again, Dan.
All right, take care. Good night.
Good night, all.